The Seder ended when I was 5.5. And my father never took me. You imagine my father's such a bad guy. I was 5.5 years old. He didn't take me to the Rebbe Seder. We were not even living. My parents used to go to my grandparents who lived in Farakov in Pesach anyway. But okay. The highlight of Pesach by the Rebbe was the Seder. As long as the rebbetzin Chamadina was alive, as long as the rebbetzin was alive, she always had a minyan by her table. She had 10 men sitting at her table. And I think she did it every Shabbos. All the meals of Shabbos also, Friday night and Shabbos, she had 10 men at the table. But the Rebbe did not come to all the Shabbos meals. But the Yom Tov meals, the Rebbe participated in. That means the 4 meals of Rosh Hashanah, the meal of Matzoh Yom Kippur, which is the only meal from which there could be pictures. If you ever see pictures of the Rebbe sitting upstairs by the table, they're Matzoh Yom Kippur, because it's the only meal which was not Shabbos or Yom Tov. And if you've ever seen those photos, the Frierdiker Rebbe's place is set and the seat is empty. And on the right side of the Frierdiker Rebbe is sitting the Rashag. On the left side of the Frierdiker Rebbe is sitting the Rebbe, our Rebbe, and next to the Rebbe is sitting always the Shmuel. They had same seats, the same people sat at the table. The Shmuel Levitin was the Rebbe's neighbor, right next door to the Rebbe, on the right side of the table, the left side of the table. Rabbi Mentlik, Kinderlach, Rabbi Mentlik, I don't know what part of the Purim story you heard from me, because I told it in 5 parts. Rabbi Mentlik, who when the Rebbe first became Rebbe, the first Purim, when the Rebbe was being Mavatal himself, Rabbi Mentlik said that to us it's the same thing as the Alter Rebbe, and he walked over to the Rebbe, and he put on his bechi, he was very chic, Rabbi Mentlik was, and I want to take mashke from the Alter Rebbe. I want to take mashke from the Alter Rebbe. And the Rebbe gave him. Purim Tov Rabbi Mentlik was the Rebbe's B'sara Mashke. All the videos, except maybe the last couple of years, when they see the Rebbe, someone is giving the Rebbe the wine, the Rebbe comes in, you visualize the beginning of a Fabring and the Rebbe walking in and sitting down. You know what I'm talking about? He takes a napkin, he wipes his cup and he pushes it away. Then he takes a second napkin and he puts it down and he folds it like into a little pocket. He takes a handful of cake, puts it in that little pocket, that's all he eats the whole Fabring. The rest of the cake sits there. And then during the week, the Rebbe paid first the Mazenis and then a Hagofen, like the din is. On Shabbos and on Yom Tov, when you're making Kiddush, Shabbos. So you make first a Hagofen, then a Mazenis, like the din is. And Rabbi Mentlik would bring the Rebbe's Bacher back full, and the Rebbe would say L'chaim. Rabbi Mentlik was Rebbe Saramashki, he was a very big chassid. He was really a big chassid.
He the one who filled out his case.
Yeah, until he got sick, yeah. The last couple of years was battle eunuch. But if you see the latest years, it's a man with a black beard. Rabbi Mentlik had a red beard. Or a white beard. But Rabbi Mentlik was Rebbe Saramashki. Rabbi Mentlik was Adam Gadol. He was a big Talmud Chacham, and Rabbi Mentlik was Rosh Yeshiva. They say his Yeshurim were the deepest Yeshurim in Lubavitch. He davened every day by Ariches, every day, like a mashpia. He was a very, very Chassidish Rabbi Mentlik. The tragedy of Rabbi Mentlik's life was that he never had any children. Rabbi Mentlik had no kids. Of course he was married, and his wife was always in 770. In the early years, when none of the women came to 770 because the women's shul was outside, the one person sitting there was rebbetzin Mentlik. and they would walk home from shul together. They would walk home the shul together, hand in hand. I promise you they would see a stick, but they would walk up the shul holding. She was an American girl, never spent a day in a public school. Her father was a Yiddah Tzaddik. And he took 3 Adams. One was Rabbi Ziskind, and the second Rabbi Mentlik, and the third Rabbi Katz. Very, very Chassidish Bachrim, all the Bavitchers. And Rabbi Mentlik's wife, they never had kids. They never had children. That was the tragedy of his life. But he was a very, very big chassid. Rabbi Mentlik refused to go upstairs to the 2nd floor. Refused. If Rabbi Mentlik got up to the 2nd floor, maybe he would have poured the Rebbe's wine. But Rabbi Mentlik refused to go upstairs to the 2nd floor. And people said to him, the Rebbe is making a seder, how come you're not going upstairs? And Rabbi Mentlik said, B'zeh Loshen. He said in Yiddish, any place where the Rebbe is not sitting at the head of the table, I'm not there. Any place where the Rebbe is not sitting at the head of the table, I'm not there. The Rebbe didn't sit at the head of the table because the head of the table was the Rebbe's chair, which makes sense. But Rabbi Mentlik said, the Rebbe is not at the table, I'm staying away. He never went upstairs, not once, in all those 20 years. So when you tell the story of Pesach by the Rebbe, the story is the Haggadah. I never saw it. So I'm going to tell you a story they heard from other people. You can hear from them just as well as me. There's so many people. If you go online and Google the Rebbe Seder, Yisrael Shmokin Zolzayin Stark was by 16 Storim. And he remembers he was there. He worked in the house. He stood right behind the Rebbe. But the whole Seder, he stood in his spot, right behind the Rebbe. So he can tell the story. I'm repeating what other people said, but that's the way it goes in this world. I'm sitting here, so I'm going to ruin the stories, embellish them, and exaggerate them, and mess them up. And then what I said is, of course, a fact, even if it's factually not true. But that's the story. I'm going to talk to you about Pesach by the Rebbe, and I'm going to start with you. I'm going to do it with other groups. I don't know how much time I'm going to have, because I'm not going to be here tomorrow, so I'm missing 2 classes. But we'll start. We'll do Pesach by the Rebbe for whatever it's worth. And just like Tishrei by the Rebbe, Pesach by the Rebbe starts with the Michtav Klali. Right? During Chodesh Nisan, remember I told you Tishrei time, the Rebbe, you send a letter to the whole world before Yom Tiv. So Pesach, the Rebbe sent also a letter to the whole world before Pesach. But there was a difference. Before Tishrei, the first 20 years of the Rebbe's Nesius was only 1 letter. The Michtav Klali was 1. And after Tavshin Lamed, the Lamed Aleph, the Michtav Klali was 2. The Rebbe sent 2 letters, one after the next. Maybe the second letter would be dated Yud Aleph Nisan, but I just don't know. There were 2 letters the Rebbe sent to the world in the last 20 years of the Rebbe's Nesius, a letter for Pesach. And of course these letters had a message, which would Yitzias Mitzrayim and Matzoh and these kinds of things. And as I explained to you, Tishrei time, sometimes these letters also addressed current events, things that were happening in the world. This is number 1. Number 2 is Matzoh. The Rebbe baked matzah twice. I don't know if it was always this way, but in the years that I remember, the Rebbe baked matzah twice. The Rebbe never went to the matzah bakery, as you can imagine. The Rebbe never went to the matzah bakery. The other Rebbe used to go. The Rebbe never went to the matzah bakery. Officially, it was the yeshiva. So it was Rabbi Mentlik, the same Rabbi Mentlik. The Bachrim baked the Rebbe's matzah. The Bachrim used to roll it, all the work. There were no women in the matzah. The Rebbe's matzah was baked. There was no women in the matzah bakery. The Bachrim made the Rebbe's matzah. So the Hanhola was in charge. As long as Rabbi Mentlik was alive, Rabbi Mentlik was an unbelievable Yidei Shamayim. He was a special chassid. He was in charge. When he got sick and he passed away, so Rabbi Zalman Lapkovsky, who was Rosh Yeshiva, took over that schus. But for most of the years of the Rebbe's Nesius, the schus of matzah belonged to Rabbi Mentlik. It belonged to the yeshiva, and Rabbi Mentlik was the Rosh Yeshiva. He was always the Rebbe's matzah. Why did the Rebbe bake matzah twice? The Rebbe baked matzah out of Pesach after Chatzei Sayim, after midday. Those are the matzahs that the Rebbe ate. And those are also the matzahs that the Rebbe used to give us, as I'm going to explain to you later, out of Pesach after Chatzei Sayim, after Mincha, the Rebbe used to give out matzah to everybody for the Seder. Which, by the way, is a Munkacha minig. It's not a Chabad minig. I've heard this from people, that the Rebbe was so connected to the Minchas Halazah, to the Munkacha Rebbe, who passed away in 1937, that the Rebbe adopted certain minhagim from the Munkacha that the earlier Rebbeim, including the Frierdiker Rebbe, did not do. Some people say that it was not a Chabad custom for the Rebbeim to give lekach. It was a Munkacha minig, and the Rebbe gave lekach. The Rebbeim didn't give Shliach Mitzvah geld. Shliach Mitzvah is not a Chabad custom. That when you travel, the Rebbe gives you money for Shliach Mitzvah. Somebody told me it's a Munkacha minig, and the Rebbe adopted it. But matzah for sure, the Munkacha Rebbe, who lived just in the previous generation, the Rebbe had the highest esteem for him. The 2 G'daylim that the Rebbe used to quote from the Achreinim always, that were sort of on a pedestal by the Rebbe, to the exclusion of all others, were the Rogachover in Lomdus and the Munkache in Halacha Minig. The Rebbe had the highest regard for the Munkache Rebbe. But the Rebbe used to give matzahs. So Erev Pesach after Chatzos, which means 1 o'clock in the afternoon, they would bake the matzahs that the Rebbe himself would eat, and the matzahs the Rebbe would distribute to the people who were local. But the Rebbe used to send matzah overseas, particularly to Eretz Yisrael. Now there's no way you can bake matzah out of Pesach and the matzah should arrive in Israel on time. It's not possible. So the Rebbe baked Beis Nisan. Beis Nisan is the yahrzeit of the Rebbe Rashab. Beis Nisan is the day that the Frierdiker Rebbe's Nesius begins. The Nesius of the Frierdiker Rebbe starts. So the Rebbe used to bake matzahs Beis Nisan. And again, the Rebbe never went to the matzah bakery. The Rebbe never went to the matzah bakery. But the Hanhola, the yeshiva, used to bake matzah on the Rebbe's behalf. What was the Rebbe's Ishtatfus? I mean, you're supposed to participate in the matzahs begufei. What was the Rebbe's Ishtatfus? They had in 770 a well, as you know, right? The same well that they used for Tashlach. And I don't know what they did before, but the Rebbe used to draw Ma'im Shalanu. Right? What does Ma'im Shalanu mean? Anybody know Ma'im Shalanu?
It's the waters from the...
What is the title of the word Ma'im Shalanu? Very, very good. You're supposed to say Ma'im Shalanu, the waters that belong to us, and I was to make fun of you, right? Ma'im Shalanu means the waters that slept, like Lino. Right? Linu, Poya, Laila, Ma'im Shalanu, waters that slept. When you take water out of the ground, the water is hot. When it comes to matzah, we're cuckoo about chashash chometz, right? We're very crazy about the possibility of chometz. And by the way, you go to the matzah bakery, the biggest chashash chometz that you have your whole Pesach is when the matzah sit on those sticks 10 feet from an oven which is 800 degrees hot, and they sit there and they sit there and they sit there. That's when they become chometz, but nobody says a word. The Rebbe told Rabbi Simpson, a papidal vediker, a papidal merer. I don't care if a paper more, paper less. Those matzahs shouldn't sit in those sticks by the oven. You put a matzah on a stick, put it in the oven. The guys are lazy. You could those long sticks, you could put 5 matzahs on a stick, and the matzahs sit. The matzahs sit. Huh? Right. And when it comes to heat, 80 minutes, the Shir Chinuch, when it comes to heat, there's different rules. The Rebbe said the matzah nicht sitzen. But anyway, so one of the shtick that we have, and this is halacha Shulchan Aruch, you don't want to mix the flour with warm water because the chometz happens faster. So the water has to cool. So you draw it the night before, and it sits a whole night, the water cools. I mean, in the matzah bakery, they have a very, very simple solution. They put the water in a refrigerator. Isn't that exciting? But the halacha is you draw the matzah the night before. So the Rebbe used to draw the water the night before, and this they did by 770. And there's videos in the later years of the Rebbe coming from 770, and they would have these fancy glasses, and they would have a special hose, and the Rebbe used to rinse the glass, and he would pour the water into the barrel 3 times and say, thank you very much. It happened very quickly. When the Rebbe did Ma'im Shalonu, we used to sing Keliyata. Now, why Keliyata? My assumption is, because at the end of the Seder, when the Rebbe used to pour the wine back into the Keshe back into the bottle, it says in the Haggadah Shal Pesach that he would sing Keliyata. So I guess somehow it was decided, it makes sense to me, that the Seder had the connection to Keliyata. So when the Rebbe came to Ma'im Shalonu, they used to sing Keliyata. Now it's Beis Nissen. Beis Nissen is the after the Shchedish. The Rebbe doesn't go to the early Shchedish. So the Rebbe came out before the sun set, and he poured Ma'im Shalonu. But if Rosh Chodesh Nisan was on a Shabbos, no, how could it be? There's a way that the Rebbe would come late from the oil somehow. Maybe if Beis Nissen was on a Shabbos, could Beis Nissen be on Shabbos? If Beis Nissen's Tes Nissen's on Shabbos and Tezayin Nissen's on Shabbos, Tezayin Nissen cannot be Shabbos. There were occasions somehow that the Rebbe came after the Shkia, and the Rebbe wanted to know why they waited for him. You should have taken the water yourself. The Rebbe, for some reason, the Rebbe came after the Shkia. He must have gone to the oil. I don't know what the context was. Maybe the Rebbe didn't bake Beis Nissen. But there were occasions where the Rebbe came late, and the Rebbe protested the fact that they waited for him to do Ma'im Shaloni. He could have done it before the sun set. Al Yedei Acher. But it's one of the things to see in 770. If you were a Bach in 770, Beis Nissen, his Rosh Chodesh Nissen in the evening, you would hang around, and in the later years there was a lot of people. In the earlier years, probably people didn't even know what was happening, and they would come, whatever they did it, and they would fill up these a table, they would fill up these glasses, and this was the Ma'im Shalonu, the water that the Rebbe used to bake matzah. That's the second thing. Now I'm going to talk to you more about the Rebbe giving matzah at Pesach when I get to Erev Pesach. But I want to tell this one thing to you now, because this I think is important. Eretz Yisrael has an airline that's called El Al, right? El Al, straight to heaven. El Al, straight to Gan Eden. El Al, at some point, started to fly on Shabbos. Now, the Israeli airports are open Shabbos, because not all the flights that come into Yisrael are Israeli. They come from Egypt. They come from Egypt Air, whatever it is. My daughters are traveling Turkish Air, so obviously Turkish landed at Yisrael, or whatever it is. Aeroflot, the Russian airline was flying into Yisrael. I don't know about now. Okay, but El Al did not fly on Shabbos. And the Rebbe used to send the matzah with El Al. Then El Al started flying on Shabbos, Kindelach, and the Rebbe sent his matzah to Yisrael with United Airlines. It was such a slap in the face. It was not only a slap in the face to El Al, it was a slap in the face to Israel. You're not keeping Shabbos, I'll send it with a goy. And you get these pictures, videos of the Rebbe by the library. There's videos of the Rebbe by the library. There was a wagon, it was boxes, it wasn't pounds, it was boxes of matzah, hundreds of pounds of matzah that the Rebbe sent to Eretz Yisrael, which would be distributed all over Eretz Yisrael to all Anash. The matzah came from the Rebbe would send that to Yisrael, and every community would get a package, I would imagine, and the leader of the community would give everybody a little piece. He took to the Seder, Shtikal matzah, it came from the Rebbe. And El Al at one point stopped traveling on Shabbos. Now, did they stop traveling on Shabbos because the Lubavitcher Rebbe didn't send matzah with El Al? I doubt it. Mistama, there were other considerations, maybe there were business considerations, maybe there were enough from a Yid making enough noise, but at some point El Al decided that they're not flying on Shabbos, and as far as I know, it's still the case today. They don't fly on Shabbos, and the Rebbe started sitting again with El Al. I remember that story vaguely. It happened in the early memory, maybe Mem Aleph, and there's a picture where the El Al agent came to 770 and took a picture with the Rebbe as the Rebbe is sending the Matzoh. It was important to them. It was important to them. It meant something that the Rebbe is sending his Matzoh through them. It was really a slap in the face, a deserved slap in the face, but a slap in the face. Just as so with the Israeli shipping, that the Rebbe forwarded the Israeli shipping. This was Israeli. They were flying on Shabbos. The Rebbe said, "There's more than one airline going to Israel. I can send the Matzoh through a goy." And when El Al stopped flying on Shabbos, the Rebbe said, "Okay, we'll go back to flying to sending it El Al." It's a big deal. It's a big deal from Allah Zaydin. Next, there was a tradition that on Yud Aleph Nissen, the Chassidim would give the Rebbe a bracha. Okay, the bracha that they would give the Rebbe was done outside of his room, upstairs. In the later years, it was actually done downstairs in Zal. It was done in Shul after Maidev. And I remember Zalman Garari standing in front of the Rebbe in the whole Shul, and he giving the Rebbe a bracha. It's so emotional. Giving the Rebbe a bracha for his birthday, especially after the Rebbetzin passed away. It was an incredibly emotional moment. And the Rebbe would stand with the ganze bittel. The Rebbe would stand and take the bracha. It was a beautiful, there's videos of it. I was never close enough to see it, but you can see the videos, how the Rebbe would take in the bracha that he gave. The person who did the bracha, from what I remember, what I heard, was Rabbi Simpson. Rabbi Eliyahu Simpson was a big chassid. It was probably his idea. Rabbi Simpson, Olav Shalom. The Rebbe had a secretary named Rabbi Shalom Mendel Simpson. His father's name was Rabbi Eli Simpson. He was the Frierdiker Rebbe secretary. He passed away in 1977. When he was alive, he gave the Rebbe the bracha. The last couple of years of his life, he was physically ill, and he said, I'm not healthy enough to learn and daven. I don't feel worthy to give the Rebbe a bracha because I'm empty. In other words, when he was younger, he was healthy, he spent his whole day learning and davening. If you spend the whole day learning and davening, then you give the Rebbe a bracha. But if the goof doesn't let you learn and daven, the body doesn't cooperate, then you're verschlafen, then you can't concentrate, and so on and so forth. He felt that he was not the roy, so he didn't do it. So while he was still alive, the last couple of years, I think it's Moshe Pinchas Katz, Rabbi Katz, and by the way, for the record, Rabbi Katz was married to another one of those three sisters. I told you, Rabbi Mentlik married a girl who never lived in public school. Rabbi Katz married the other sister. And they had one son. Velvel Katz, and Baruch Hashem, there's a lot of Einiklach. He also has one son, but he has many daughters. Rabbi Katz got the bracha. Rabbi Katz was also a beautiful Yid. I remember he lived in my block when I was growing up. Later he moved closer to 770, but he was a Peilisha with good midas, a Zisa Yid, a big chassid. Rabbi Katz passed away, then Rabbi Zalman Garaya gave the bracha. So Yud Aleph Nissen at night after Maidiv, they would give the Rebbe a bracha. The Rebbe would take it, he would mamish take it, he mamish took it, he would take it in. And then the Rebbe would answer the bracha. And you understand yourself, the Rebbe's answer to the bracha was a bigger bracha than any bracha anybody could have given the Rebbe, but it was one of the things that took place all the years from Tafshin Yud Aleph, I'm assuming, that on the Rebbe's birthday, somebody would give, one of the Chassidim would give, on behalf of all of the Chassidim, would give the Rebbe a bracha. Now, as far as the celebration of Yud Aleph Nissen is concerned, as far as the celebration of the Rebbe's birthday is concerned, right? Girls, what is the first place in Lubavitch where the Rebbe's birthday appears? Good answer, but not the one I'm looking for. What's the first place that the Rebbe's birthday appeared in Lubavitch? The answer is in the Hayom Yom. I'm playing with you. I'm asking the question not clear, so I can. The Rebbe, our Rebbe, wrote the Hayom Yom. He compiled it, and by his birthday, the Rebbe wrote, "B'yom ha'holedes ala adam lehizbeided." Well, Allah starting b'zechreinei his make a cheshbon hanefesh v'advarim shetzrichim l'taken yoshev v'yisaknim. It's one of the shortest Hayom Yom. It's a line and a half. The Rebbe put that Hayom Yom on his birthday, right? The Rebbe made Hayom Yom. So the Rebbe entered into the Hayom Yom, the Yud Aleph Nissen, it entered the birthday. By the way, you're talking about the Muslim. Yud Aleph Nissen Toshin Tes, right? When the Frierdiker Rebbe passed away, Yishvat Tafshin Yud. So it was the last Yud Aleph Nisan that the Frierdiker Rebbe and the Rebbe were physically alive in the same world. Tafshin Tes, right? Yud Aleph Nisan Tafshin Tes, there is a Mugadik Sikh on the Frierdiker Rebbe. The Frierdiker Rebbe spoke, the Sikh was edited, and it was printed for Pesach Tafshin Tes. And the date of the Sikh is Yud Aleph Nisan Tafshin Tes. And the Sikh of Yud Aleph Nisan Tafshin Tes, the Frierdiker Rebbe says that there's a Pnimi Atzmi Vort was a Rebbe gegeben mi Rebbe le Rebbe. There was a deep Atzmi Vort that was given over from one Rebbe to the next Rebbe. And the Rebbe, the Frierdiker Rebbe, publicly said this Vort. And our Rebbe printed it up right away for put him to Pesach Tafshin Tes. Yud Aleph Nisan Tafshin Tes, the last physical birthday of the Rebbe Zol Zayin, and the Rebbe Rayatzes Chaim Chayosem Al Mahdein, the Frierdiker Rebbe said a Sikha, and he repeated a Vart that was given over from Rebbe le Rebbe. I always assumed that the Frierdiker said it to the Rebbe. And the Rebbe printed it right away for Tafshin Tes. He printed it, the Rebbe said Yud Aleph Nisan, it was printed 2 days later in a Kuntres, right away for Pesach. That year, the Rebbe printed it right away. I've since heard there was a Sikha to Rabbi Kazanovsky. He went on a shlichus and he came back, and the Frierdiker told him the Vart. Tziazei, you want the second place where Yud Aleph Nisan appears in the Bible literature is in the Sikha from the Frierdiker Rebbe on the Rebbe's birthday, the last physical birthday that the Rebbe celebrated on the Frierdiker Rebbe, Yud Aleph Nisan Tafshin Tes. And you can look at the Sikha up. It's hard. It's a very deep Sikha. It's hard to understand, but you'll see. In the beginning it says, the Frierdiker Rebbe said on the Rebbe's birthday, this is a Pnimi Atzmi Vort, was a Tzachibbe Geb Mi Rebbe Le Rebbe, this is a deep Atzmi thought, which was given over, so to speak, in private to Rebbe. The Frierdiker Rebbe announced it to the whole world on the last Yud Aleph Nisan when he and the Rebbe were physically bepashtus on the same planet. So there's Yud Aleph Nisan. Okay, now, you mentioned the rebbetzin Chana, and you're very right about it. The rebbetzin Chana was incredibly concerned with the Rebbe's covet. The rebbetzin Chana was deeply dedicated to the honor of her son, whom she would call the Zun Zol Gezun Zayin. And she made sure that Chassidim know when the Rebbe's birthday was. She made sure to remind the Chassidim of the Rebbe's wedding anniversary, and she kept track of who celebrated it. If she would find out that you made a Fabring Yud Aleph Nisan and you made a kul on the table, you became a friend of hers. She really paid attention to which Chassidim were honoring her Zunzol Gezunz, and it was very important to her. And it's assumed, although it's not known for sure, that she probably is the one, as you mentioned, the young lady here, the voice, I don't know which voice it was, but whoever said it, that she probably made sure everybody knew when the Rebbe's birthday was, and she wanted to make sure that the Rebbe's birthday should be celebrated. So the Rebbe becomes a Rebbe, Yud Aleph Nisan Tafshin, Yud Shvat Tafshin Yud Aleph, right? Unofficially was a Rebbe Tafshin Yud. What happened Yud Aleph Nisan Tafshin Yud, I do not know, but I do know this. That the following year, Tafshin Yud Aleph, the Rebbe went to the oil, right? On your birthday you go to the oil, right? The Rebbe went to the oil. When I was growing up, my birthday, I never went to the oil. I wrote the Rebbe a letter. Yeah. Now, unfortunately, or fortunately, or whatever the case is, we go to the oil. The Rebbe went to the oil. And before the Rebbe went to the oil, he sent Leibel Groner out to the Bachrim. Leibel Groner, in 1951, was 21 years old. He was a Bachar himself. And Leibel Groner was the Rebbe's shabas. He helped the Rebbe physically. And the Rebbe said to Leibel, Gezog the Bachrim, you all tell the Bachrim, I'm going to the oil. Und Eib ze will, übergeben sich, or seine great übergeben sich mit anemes, if they prepare to become my Chassidim in earnest, they should write down the names and their mother's name. Shmon v'shem yim. Ich will nicht monnen gedeles in the Tzuris. Aber sie sollen wissen, dass nicht kein joke. Which means I'm not going to ask them to climb to the sky, crazy things, but they should know if they're signing the name on this piece of paper, it's serious business. The Rebbe said to Leibel, go into the bar, I'm going now to the oil for my birthday. Any boy who is ready to become my chassid for real should put his name down. I'm not going to ask you to do extreme things, but I need you to understand that you're putting your name on this paper. I'm going to keep it, and I'm going to read it. I'm not going to forget. It's a nishka joke. It's not a joke. It's an earnest. It's a very, very serious thing. And I just want to throw in for fun. It's very clear. It's very, very clear. And the Rebbe had a different relationship with young Chassidim and older Chassidim. No doubt about it. When the Rebbe became a Rebbe, the Chassidim from the earlier Rebbeim, the Rebbe was much more reluctant to accept them. He said, your Rebbe is the Frierdiker Rebbe, your Rebbe is the Rebbe Rashab, leave me alone. But the Bachrim, the young light, and the girls, there was no difference. The Rebbe was their Rebbe from the first minute. From the first minute, the Rebbe accepted the Junge right away. And the Rebbe's relationship with Bachrim was very unusual. I heard this from more than one person, that if a Bachar wrote the Rebbe a letter, he got an answer every time. As soon as he became a chassan, the Rebbe said to him, Tara. If you ask the Rebbe a question as a bacher, the Rebbe had a unique relationship with the bacherim and a unique relationship with the single girls. The moment you became what's called a balabas or a balabasta, the Rebbe treated you different. I heard this from people who know. The Rebbe, a guy told me every question I wrote, he answered. As soon as I became a chassan, as soon as I got married, he sent me Tara. I heard it from more than one person. There was a special relationship. So Tovshin Yud Aleph, the Rebbe went to the oil. There was no fabrengen. The Rebbe was very, very tzniustic about his birthday. Tovshin Yud Beis, the Rebbe turned 50. The 50th birthday of the Rebbe called in to his room of human yonim of Chassidim. There were not that many people around. But he called in Elter Chassidim. I mean, who were the Elter Chassidim? Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Jacobs, Rabbi Simpson, maybe Rabbi Rifkin, Rabbi Kazanovsky, Rabbi Zalman Garari, Rabbi Shmuel. Zalman of the important people. And they were talking important people. Don't kid yourself. They're important people. And a handful of Elter Bachrim. The Rebbe said by name which Bachrim to call. The Elter Bachrim. Amongst the Elter Bachrim was Rabbi Yael Khan, who was the Chayzer, of course. And in his room, the Rebbe said, when you turn 50, you say Kapitel Nun Aleph in Tilim. Kapitel Nun Aleph in Tilim has in it, right? Kapitel of Tilim, you say every night by Kishma Shalamita. Lamseach Mitzvah David Bevoy. It's David the Melch Tshuva Kapitel. And in that Kapitel, you have Hashem's Faz. The Maimer Hashem's Faz is a beautiful Maimer. It's not particularly long. And the Rebbe cried a storm. The Rebbe cried Yefelach when he said the Maimer. It was very, very emotional. So when the Rebbe finished the Maimer, there was only one Jew who could say something to the Rebbe. His name was Reb Shmuel Levitin. He may have grandchildren in the room. Reb Shmuel was a very big chassid. He was almost the same age as the Frierdiker Rebbe. Frierdiker was born in 1880. He was born in 1883. The Rebbe was born in 1902. He could have been the Rebbe's father. Reb Shmuel was an Adam Gadol. He was a big Gon. He was a big Rav. He was a big Talmid Chacham. He was a big chassid. He was a big Ovid. He was a Yerei Shamayim. They say an Achei Temimim took him 5 minutes. Every time he went to the bathroom, cost him 5 minutes. He was in it was 60 seconds. Every bracha, and it wasn't that a problem with the words, you understand. He was a serious Jew from a very different age. You don't see people like Reb Shmuel around. And Reb Shmuel was the only person that after the Rebbe became Rebbe, there was the slightest resemblance to chatting, just to schmooze. The Frierdiker Rebbe used to call people in for chats. The Rebbe didn't do that till maybe the much later years. But Reb Shmuel was the one person who could have said something. So the Rebbe said this mime, and he cried up a storm. So the Rebbe finished. He told the Rebbe, Tashmeini Sasem B'Simcha. In Kapitel Nun Aleph, Kapitel Nun Aleph, David the Melch is doing tshuva. So some of the psukim are very, very bitter and sad, and some of the psukim are very, very happy. If you guys were last year here in Tanya, in seminary Aleph, so Perek Chavav, the Alter Rebbe says that you say Simcha Achar Otzav. After you're sad, you have to be happy. And the only justification for the sadness is the happiness that comes after it. This kapitel is that Perek that the Arizal was massacred to say by taking chtzos. So he tells the Rebbe words from the Perek, which means be happy. And without a hesitation, the Rebbe gives it right back to him. Tagel na tzama istikisa. Right? You understand Hebrew? Tashmeini Sasavcha means allow me to hear gladness and joy. So the Rebbe answers Tagel, to bring happiness to the bones that you're crushing. In other words, thank you very much. The Shmuel tells the Rebbe to be happy, and the Rebbe's answer to Shmuel is, I appreciate it, but from where I sit, it's not so gishmak. To sit on the throne, to sit on the shbenkel, as the Rebbe calls it, is not so much fun. But this was Yud Aleph Nissen Tov Shin Yud Beis. And then there was no Fabrengen Yud Aleph Nissen for 10 years. More than once, I think, if Yud Aleph Nissen was on a Shabbos, the Rebbe would make a Fabrengen, it was claimed Shabbos HaGodl. Yud Aleph Nissen could be Shabbos. Pesach could be on Thursday, so Nissen is Shabbos. So the Rebbe made a Fabrengen a few times. And there's actually a Maimer from the Rebbe, a Yud Aleph Nissen Dik Maimer called Poda B'Shalom Nafshi. When the Rebbe turned 54, he turned 50 in 1952. Right? He turned 51 in 1953, he turned 52 in 1954, he turned 53 in 1955, he turned 54 in 1956. Tafshin Tezayin, there's a Maimer from the Rebbe, Poda B'Shalom Nafshi, out of Pesach. Because it was the Rebbe's Yom Haledes, and the Rebbe turned 54 years old. He started saying Kapitel Nun Hey, in Kapitel Nun Hey, Poda B'Shalom Nafshi. It was a Shabbos. So the Rebbe Fabrengt. But during the week, Yud Aleph Nissen, the Rebbe not Fabrengt. The first Yud Aleph Nissen Fabrengt, which was not a Shabbos, was when the Rebbe turned 60. Tov Shin Chav Beis. And that was a Shtur of Dika Fabrengt. When the Rebbe turned 60, he celebrated his birthday, in Grois. There was a Fabrengen. The Rebbe said two Maimorim in that Farbrengen. The Rebbe made see him a Masechta and Pesach Pesachim, a beautiful Hadron. A lot of the Inyanim of that Farbrengen are famous, and it was a big celebration. When the Rebbe turned 60, the Rebbe celebrated. There's some of the Sichas of Sichas, also Lekuta Sichas, Amugan Lekuta Sichas. The Rebbe turned 60. The Rebbe celebrated his birthday in style, right? There was no sneers. It was very, very open. It was a big, big celebration. Avraham Lipsker told me, as I was on Gesund, Avraham Lipsker is he's my father's friend, so he's on the other side of 80. He was the head of Teferes Bachurim in Maristan for many, many years. He's an old man, Rabbi Lipsker. In 1962, in Tavshin Chav Beis, the Rebbe sent Shluchim to France and Shluchim to Eretz Yisrael. Avraham Lipsker went to Paris, in the yeshiva in France. Because what happened was, Bachrim came from France to the Rebbe, Bachrim came from Israel to the Rebbe, so the Rebbe sent American Bachrim to take the place of the French and Israeli Bachrim who came to the Rebbe, so the yeshivas should not suffer the loss of the elder Bachrim. So he was in France for a year. He went home for Pesach. After Pesach, he brought back a tape of that Farbrengen in Rav Nissen. It's reel to reel. You know these big, have you seen those things? A monstrosity. The tape recorder is the size of a copy machine today. The tape recorder is massive. And there's two rings, these big, big reels, and the tape goes from one onto the other. It goes from one, and then when you finish, you have to wind it all back. It's very, very, very large and cumbersome. When I was gearing up, they already had the little cassettes, which made it so much, much easier, yeah? And now, all of these things are Aleim Shalom. All you got is digital. There's Bechlal no Matthias. You don't even know how the sound is produced and where it's kept. It's all so ephemeral. It takes as little space as something can take up without taking up any space at all. Like in them houses. But the olden days said this big, massive tape recorder with a reel to reel. He came back after Pesach with this Farbrengen. In France, there was a chassid by the name of Rabbi Solneach. Solneach was a very, very big chassid, and he forgot to die. He forgot to starve. A person who was supposed to die, he forgot to die. He lived 99 and a half years. He went around twice. He missed his stops. He went around the second time. Solneach was Maidach Yomim. He passed away in the 80s. He never came to the Rebbe. In other words, he was a chassid of the Rebbe for more than 30 years. He never saw the Rebbe as a Rebbe. Never came here. And there's one of all kinds of reasons why. That's Nishichilik. But he was very makusher. He was very connected to the Rebbe, but he never came to America. He never visited. But he was a Baal Madrege. Rabbi Solneach was a Ish Ruchni. He was a spiritual man. Avraham Lipsker comes back to him after Pesach.
Which was on?
Solneach Lipski, yeah. How many Solneachs are there? Any Solneach is his Einikul Tziyadeh. Solneach, Ar Yosef's father.
Ah, the original.
Yeah. He has a book about him called Yisrael Neach Agadol. Solneach Belinitsky, his family was Belinitsky. He had a couple of sons. He had daughters, Majeski, Gansberg. I have my sister is married to one of his grandsons. Anyway, so Avraham Lipsker played the tape of the Maimorim of the Rebbe to Solneach. Solneach sat and listened, or he stood and listened, and he said to Avraham Lipsker, Azelchem Maimorim zanen kemel nish gewen, afilu nish in Lubavitch. He said, Maimorim, like the Rebbe just said, never were, not even in Lubavitch. Avraham Lipsker says to him, what are you talking about? I mean, what's so special about the Maimorim? So I'm telling you, Maimorim, like the Rebbe just said, never were. He says, what do you mean? And he said to him, he was a spiritual man. He knew stuff that other people don't know. And he said, I'm telling you, Maimorim like this, even in Lubavitch, you have such Maimorim. And just to prove to you what I'm saying, I'll tell you Nachamaisa. There's a very, very famous picture of the Rebbe by a Farbrengen, where the Rebbe has a huge smile. A huge, huge smile. And he was smiling, maybe he was in his room. He was smiling to Hubert Humphrey. Hubert Humphrey was a senator from Minnesota who actually ran for president at some point. He was like, oi. And you see the photo of the Rebbe, you don't see Humphrey in the picture. And so Solneach took a look at the photo and he said, Do Shmekel the Rebbe Goy. He looked at the picture with the Rebbe with a smile and he said, here the Rebbe is smiling to a Goy. And he said, how do you know? How do you know? It's a picture. He said, I'm telling you the Rebbe is smiling to a Goy. It was true. But how do you know? He said, I know. So just like he knew that was smiling to a Goy when he said he knew that my model like this was never in Lubavitch, you have to believe him. But this was the story of Tavshin Chav Beis. This was when the Rebbe turned 60. And then again, the Rav Nissen no Farbrengens. Gladly you should know that there are stories that we now are finding out, there's tapes actually of it, where the Rebbe wanted Negunim. Tavshin Chav Gimel, they sang Achla Lekim, Doimi Nafshi, for Samach Beis. The Rebbe wanted that you sing a nigun for his Yom Haledes. I mean, it took a long time until people figure it out, but it's quite clear that the Rebbe liked the idea that Chassidim were singing a nigun connected to his shana, to his year. The next Fabrengen in Aleph Nissen was Tafshel Lamed Aleph, when the Rebbe turned 69. He went into his 70th year. And this is the Maimed that everybody learns in Aleph Nissen. Right? You ask the Lubavitcher Chassid, what's the Aleph Nissen Maimed? What's the answer? B'yom HaShtiyasa. B'yom HaShtiyasa was Aleph Nissen in the afternoon. I think it was before Mincha. It was a short Fabreng. And maybe it was after the Rebbe came from the oil even. I don't know. Aleph Nissen, the Pasha went to the oil. It was a very short Fabrengen. Most of the Fabrengen was a Maimed. And when the 1971, when the Rebbe completed 69 years and he went to his 70th year, started saying Kapitel Ayin, the Rebbe made a Fabrengen, a short Fabrengen. The following year, Tovshin Lamed Beis, this is already the Tumul, Shnas HaShivim, it was a huge, huge celebration. Everybody came, anybody who could came. The Rebbe spoke about it before. The Rebbe spoke about it Purim. The Rebbe said, people are writing me about sending me presents my Yom Haledes. The Rebbe said, you want to send presents Yom Haledes? Send me Chedushay Teira, send me Inyan and Teira. The beginning of any gift you could give me that's going to have a value to me is in Teira. Purim Tafshin Lamed Beis, the Rebbe spoke about bringing presents in Fid Aleph Nissen, and the Rebbe said, if you want to give me a matana that's meaningful to me, give me a matana which is connected to Teira. The first niggin is Kapitel Samach Tes. That means Tafshin Lamed Aleph. Every single nigga in the Lubavitch those days was the tune of Dayenu. When they ever made Ufaratsta, every Dayenu, Shleima Kunyan. Shleima Kunyan. Dayenu was an old folk song, it's not a Lubavitch song at all. But the Kiyelakim was this was the first time they made a niggin from the Rebbe. They took an old tune, and until 1972 they knew only one tune. There's a few Negunim that have the tune of Dayenu. But then and they sang about the Rebbe. They sang about the Rebbe. The following year, they sang Yasesu Yismechu B'Chokom. Huh?
They never sing that song anymore.
But it is. But when I remember them singing this niggin. I guess I was here before, huh? Yeah. And then from that on, every year they made a niggin for the Rebbe. For more than 10 years, the niggin of the Rebbe was made by Shlomo Kunin, as far as I know, most of them. And he took old tunes. He didn't make original tunes. He took old tunes, and he put words to an old tune. The last one was Kapitel Pei Aleph. No, Pei. They're good. So starting Pei Aleph, those are already original tunes, and Kunim was out of the business because he carried.
But now
Four. There are four Negunim right now. Yeah, I'll tell you in a second. But so beginning with Kapitel Pei Aleph, then they started making original tunes for the Rebbe, and there was a whole competition. Everybody made a niggin. So all the Menagna made a niggin. Shalom Brochstadt made a niggin. There's a Yid Fight 11 made a niggin. There was a Yid label Bosovsky. There's a few people would make nigunim, and then they would have a team of judges. The Chazodim and Lubavitch, Rabbi Fried and Zalman Baumgart, Nachapor Chevre. They would sit down. They would go through the nigunim, and they would choose one. But this is interesting, Chevre. More than once, the Rebbe had more than one niggin. And the Chazara would choose which niggin we're going to sing. But the Fabrengen in Aleph Nissen, during the course of the Fabrengen and until the middle Mems, in the Maimed, the Rebbe would mention some of the psukim from his kapitel. I remember one year, they chose a niggin. What year it was, I don't remember, but I remember I was a Bach in Yeshiva. The Rebbe spoke in different psukim, and the niggin that was chosen was dumped out the window, and the other niggin that lost was chosen because the Rebbe spoke in different psukim. You understand? In other words, soft called soft, the Rebbe chose the niggin. A bunch of people wrote nigunim, and they would sing it weeks. The people who pushed lobbying. From after Purim, in the streets, you would hear this. Everyone wanted you to know their version of the niggin because they wanted to win the competition. So the chazanim would sit down and choose which niggin is going to win. Now they make 100 nigunim. Then it was phase 2 or 3 or 4. And then one year, they chose a niggin. And we started to sing it, Shabbat before Yirav Nissen. And then the Fabrengen, the Rebbe spoke another psukim, and that niggin was never sung again by the Rebbe. And the niggin that was lost, because the Rebbe, they had the right psukim, that became the Rebbe's niggin.
So you had to learn all 3 or 4.
I never knew the niggin of this. It took me weeks. To learn a new niggin is not so easy. Some people have a chush. But it takes a long, unless you hung around 770 and you sang it and sang it and sang it. When they sang the new niggin, they would listen, a small percentage of the Chevre knew it. Anyway, going back to the Fabrengen issue. So this is how it was by the Rebbe with the Negunim. And by the way, the Rebbe very much appreciated it. The Rebbe used to say that's a kumentzu naya Negunim. The Rebbe saw the Negunim, the Chassidim composing of his lyhadus, as adding Pashat new Negunim to Chabad, which was for the Rebbe very, very important. The big Yidaf Nissen by the Rebbe is Lamed Beis. Shas HaShiv. And some people will say that if you would make a list of, let's say, 4 or 5 most important dates in the Rebbe's Nesiyas, one of those dates would be Yidaf Nis Tashlan Beis. Tashlan Beis was a watermark. Everybody came. Anybody could afford. Eretz Yisrael came plane loads. From all over the world people came. There were many people who came then that, maybe never came before. It was a big deal. The Rebbe turned 70. And by the Rebbe it was a big deal. And there was a Feidik of Fabrengen. The Fabrengen is on video. This Fabrengen you can now, they actually did digitalize it. They made it even better. You could see the whole Fabrengen on video. The excitement, the love that you Chassidim feel for the Rebbe and the Fabrengen of Lamed Beis, you could touch it. You could feel how excited they are. There was put a Sach Ava from the Chassidim to the Rebbe and the Rebbe to the Chassidim. It was a very, very special moment. And that Pesach, the Rebbe Fabrengen every day of Pesach, 8 days. And he spoke on every single pasuk. The kapitel now is one kapitel. The Rebbe spoke on every single pasuk of the entire kapitel, and there's printed in the Sichos and they suffered. The Rebbe was Magia, all the Sichos on Perek Ayin, Perek Ayinav, Magia, all this. There's 4 Negunim. There's B'cha Hashem Chasisi, B'cha, and then Chemei Pesach Yisi, the Rab Matamach Seyes. Then there's the Voy B'Gvures, and then there's Teranim, Nazef Vazai, right? There are 4 Negunim of the same kapitel. There was a shturim that came out. And I gotta stop now, but I'll just say this, I'll continue with the next group. My dad, Fabrengen, and the Rebbe asked for a birthday present, which was very out of character. The Rebbe asked for 71 new mices. The Rebbe spoke how people are talking about he should retire. And the Rebbe says, retire, I'm taking on a bigger load. The Rebbe asked for a birthday present. And the birthday present was 71 new mices. And the Rebbe said he's going to pay 15%, 15% of the cost of the new Moisid is going to come from the 770 from the Rebbe. And the Rebbe said, normally I give you the last 15%. This time I'm going to make a chiddush. I'm giving you the first 15%. If you want to make a Moisid, I'm sending you a check right away. Which means you're going to eat your heart out until you complete the job, because the Rebbe's money is in your account. Girls, the Rebbe got over 140. It's the only time a Chassidim ever exceeded the Rebbe. The Rebbe asked for 71 new meistes, and I promise you, it was in Lubavitch then, it was a lot. It was a hard challenge. And the Rebbe got literally twice as many as he asked for. Sure. All the early Chabad in California.
Oh, really?
Yes, all of them. San Francisco, Simcha Monica, and San Diego, and the Valley, Chabad Mid-City, all started then. Okay, I'll do this with the next group. Okay.